I've always been the easy child in my family. Not the favorite, not the difficult one. Just easy. The one who didn't argue. The one who adjusted. The one everyone assumed would understand. If you asked my father to describe me, he'd say I was mature for my age, which was his polite way of saying I learned early not to need much. My brother, Samir, on the other hand, was allowed to be loud, impulsive, unfinished. Where I learned to manage consequences, he learned to expect exceptions. That difference had a price, and I paid it quietly for years. The night everything cracked open wasn't dramatic at first. No shouting, no slammed doors, just a phone call that came too late in the evening to be harmless. It was 11:42 p.m. when my phone lit up on the bedside table. I'd already turned off the lamp, already decided tomorrow would be another long day at work. I almost ignored it. Almost. Dad flashed on the screen. I answered because I always did. Beta, he said, his voice unusually careful, like someone walking across thin ice. Are you awake? I sat up. That tone never meant good news. I am now, I said. There was a pause. I could hear the television murmuring in the background at their house. Some late-night news anchor filling the silence he was choosing not to. Then he cleared his throat. Samir needs some help. Of course he does. I didn't say it out loud. I just waited. Dad continued. He's found an opportunity. A really good one this time. Business-related. I closed my eyes. I'd heard these words before. Too many times. Opportunities that never survived reality. Ideas that required other people's money, but only his name on the dream. How much? I asked, skipping past the performance. Another pause. Longer this time. 15 lakhs. My chest tightened. That wasn't pocket change. That wasn't help. That was a transfer of power. That's not help, I said slowly. That's everything I've saved. It's an investment, Dad corrected a little too quickly. And he's family. There it was. The sentence that had ended so many discussions before they even started. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the faint crack in the wall opposite me. I remembered noticing it years ago and thinking I should get it fixed. Somehow I never did. It felt symbolic now. Why are you calling me this late? I asked. Why not tomorrow? He exhaled. Because Samir needs an answer tonight. That's when I knew this wasn't a request. What did you tell him? I asked. I told him, Dad said carefully, that you'd come around. You always do. The words landed heavier than the number ever could. I felt something shift inside me. Not anger, not fear, recognition. Like finally seeing the shape of a shadow that had been following me my whole life. Did you already promise him the money? I asked. Another silence. This one wasn't thoughtful. It was guilty. He's already spoken to the seller, Dad said. He just needs the transfer in the morning. It's simpler if it comes from your account. Simpler for whom? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You didn't even ask me, I said. Don't make this difficult, he replied, and his voice hardened just enough to remind me who usually won. This family has supported you your whole life. Now it's your turn. That sentence burned. I thought of the years I'd sent money without being asked. The times I covered temporary gaps that became permanent expectations. The promotions I didn't celebrate because someone else needed help more urgently. The way my achievements were always treated as communal property. I realized something terrifying then. They didn't see my savings as mine. They saw it as unused family funds. I'm not giving him the money, I said quietly. The silence on the other end was immediate and absolute. Then Dad spoke, slower now, firmer. I've already agreed. My stomach dropped. You what? I told him yes, Dad repeated, because I trust my daughter, and because I know you won't embarrass this family by refusing. There it was. The theft dressed up as trust. The pressure disguised as pride. You agreed to give away my money, I said, without my consent. You're being dramatic, he replied. It's just money. Just money. Years of discipline. Years of saying no to myself so others could say yes. I need you to think carefully, Dad added. If you do this, you're choosing conflict. No. If I refuse, I'm choosing myself. I'll call you tomorrow, I said, and ended the call before he could stop me. My phone felt heavy in my hand, like it knew what it had just witnessed. A minute later, a message came through. Not from Dad. From Samir. Dad said you're sending the money in the morning. I'll share the account details. No greeting. No question. Just certainty. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding, and understood something with chilling clarity. My brother wasn't trying to steal from me. He already had, and my father had handed him the key. I didn't sleep that night. Not properly. I lay on my back, staring at the ceiling fan as it cut the dark into slow, uneven pieces. Every few minutes, my phone vibrated on the side table, messages piling up, not asking, assuming. By 6:18 a.m., I'd received 3 missed calls from Dad, 2 from my mother, and a voice note from Samir that I didn't open. I already knew what it would contain. Reassurance wrapped around entitlement like it always was. When I finally got up, the city outside looked indifferent. Traffic moved. Vendors opened their stalls. Somewhere, people were having normal mornings. I brushed my teeth with mechanical focus, trying to keep my thoughts from spiraling. I told myself one thing over and over. Just say no clearly, then step back. At 8:02 a.m., my phone rang again. Dad. I answered this time, not because I wanted to, but because avoidance had never saved me before. You've had all night to think, he said. No greeting. No warmth. We need to finalize this. I've thought enough, I replied. The answer is no. The word felt strange in my mouth. Solid. Unapologetic. Silence. Then a sharp exhale. You're being selfish, he said. This isn't about you. I leaned against the kitchen counter, gripping the edge. It's literally my money. You live comfortably, he snapped. You have a job, savings, independence. Samir is still finding his footing. I almost laughed. Samir was 32. Finding his footing shouldn't mean standing on my neck, I said. Dad ignored that. He always did when something challenged the family narrative. You know how this will look, he continued. Your brother asks for help and you refuse. What am I supposed to tell people? There it was. The real crisis. Tell them the truth, I said. That you agreed to something that wasn't yours to give. His tone dropped. Dangerous now. Controlled. Careful, he warned. You're crossing a line. I felt something in me finally straighten. No, I said. I'm drawing one. The call ended abruptly. 5 minutes later, my mother called. She started softly, like she always did when she was about to apply pressure. Beta, why are you making this harder than it needs to be? I closed my eyes. He's your brother, she continued. One day you'll need him too. I thought of all the days I already had, and how absent he'd been for most of them. When have I ever needed him? I asked. She ignored the question. Your father is very upset. He feels disrespected. That word again, as if my autonomy were an insult. I feel violated, I said, but no one seems concerned about that. There was a pause. Then her voice sharpened. Don't exaggerate. No one stole anything. Yet, I replied. She sighed, heavy and theatrical. Listen to me carefully. If you don't help now, don't expect the same support later. Support, another word that only traveled in one direction. I'm not threatening anyone, I said calmly. I'm just not giving the money. By the time the call ended, my hands were shaking, not from fear, but from something like grief. The quiet realization that love in my family had always come with conditions. At work, I tried to focus. Emails blurred together. My coffee went cold untouched. Around noon, I checked my banking app, a habit I developed unconsciously over the years. That's when my breath caught. There was a pending transaction. Not completed, but initiated. My heart slammed against my ribs. The amount matched what Dad had said. 15 locks. Labeled as scheduled transfer. I stared at the screen, my vision tunneling. They'd done it. Not fully, but close enough to prove intent. I called the bank immediately, my voice steady in a way that surprised even me. I canceled the transaction, flagged the account, changed my credentials. Every click felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. When I was done, I sat there staring at my reflection in the darkened laptop screen. I looked older, sharper, like someone who'd finally stopped pretending the fire wouldn't reach her side of the house. My phone exploded minutes later. Samir, this time. I answered. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he demanded. No hello. No confusion. Just rage. "You tried to take my money," I said. "Dad said it was fine," he shot back. "He promised me." "That's between you and him," I replied. "Not me." "You're ruining everything," Samir hissed. "Do you know how embarrassing this is?" There it was again. Embarrassment. As if my refusal were the crime. "I don't care," I said. He laughed bitterly. "You think you're better than us now? Big job, big attitude." "No," I said. "I just think I get to decide what happens to what I earn." There was a pause. Then his voice dropped, venomous. "Fine. Don't act surprised when Dad remembers this." The line went dead. That evening, Dad sent a message in the family group chat. Some people forget where they come from once they taste independence. No names, no accountability, just accusation. Relatives reacted instantly. Aunts, cousins, people who had never once asked how I was doing suddenly had opinions. I muted the chat without replying. That night, alone in my apartment, I sat on the floor with my back against the couch and finally let myself feel it. Not the guilt they wanted, but the clarity they feared. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was an attempted theft justified by blood. And for the first time, I understood something that scared me more than losing money ever could. If I didn't stop this now, it wouldn't end here. They would take again, just more carefully next time. The first thing I noticed the next morning was the silence. No calls, no messages, no passive-aggressive quotes in the family group chat. It should have felt like relief. Instead, it felt like the pause before something breaks. I went to work anyway. I answered emails. I nodded in meetings. I smiled when required. But underneath it all, my body stayed braced, like it was waiting for impact. That impact came at 3:27 p.m. My phone buzzed with a notification from my landlord. "Hi. Just checking. Did you request early access to your unit for maintenance?" My stomach dropped. I typed back immediately. "No. Why?" The reply came seconds later. "Your father called. Said there was a family emergency, and he needed to collect some documents from your apartment. He sounded very sure." Very sure. I locked myself in the office restroom and stared at my reflection. My face had gone pale, my eyes sharp with disbelief. They'd escalated. I called my landlord, explained everything, apologized more than I should have. He agreed not to let anyone in without my written permission. When I hung up, my hands were trembling. It wasn't about money anymore. It was about access. That evening, I drove straight to my parents' house. I didn't call ahead. I didn't prepare a speech. I just needed to see them. Needed to confirm what I already knew. Dad opened the door. He looked irritated, not surprised. "What are you doing here?" he asked. "I could ask you the same thing," I replied, stepping inside. Samir was on the couch, scrolling through his phone like nothing was happening. He looked up, rolled his eyes. Drama again? I ignored him and turned to Dad. "You called my landlord," I said. "You tried to enter my apartment." Dad didn't deny it. That's what hurt the most. "You were being unreasonable," he said calmly. "We needed the documents. Bank statements. Proof of funds." "For what?" I demanded. "For Samir's application," he said. "The seller wants assurance." My ears rang. You tried to use my name, I whispered. Without my consent. Dad folded his arms. I'm trying to protect this family. No, I said. You're trying to protect him. Samir finally stood up. You're blowing this out of proportion, he said. You're not even losing anything. It's temporary. Temporary theft is still theft, I snapped. Dad's voice rose. Enough. This is exactly why we didn't involve you properly. You overreact. Something in me went cold. You didn't involve me, I said slowly, because you knew I'd say no. Dad stepped closer. You don't get to say no when family is involved. There it was, the truth spoken out loud. I looked at both of them, my brother who felt entitled to what I built, and my father who felt justified handing it over. I'm done, I said quietly. Dad scoffed. Done with what? With being your safety net, I replied. With being the quiet solution to your loud problems. I turned to leave. Samir laughed behind me. Go ahead. Walk out. Let's see how long you last alone. I stopped at the door and turned back. I've been alone for years, I said. This is just the first time I'm admitting it. I left before either of them could respond. The retaliation didn't take long. By the next day, my aunt called. Then another. Then a cousin I barely spoke to. Different voices. Same script. You should understand. He's your brother. Your father is heartbroken. Money comes and goes. I stopped answering. That night, I did something I'd never done before. I made a list. Not of grievances, of boundaries. No access to my accounts. No discussions about my finances. No emergencies that don't involve consent. No guilt-based decisions. It felt radical and terrifying. On Friday afternoon, my bank called. There's been another attempt to authorize a transfer, the representative said gently. We blocked it, but we wanted to confirm. My chest tightened. From where? An in-person request, she said. Your father came to the branch. I laughed. A short, hollow sound. He hadn't stopped. He'd just changed tactics. I want to freeze everything, I said. All access. Even linked information. When the call ended, I sat in my car, hands on the steering wheel, breathing slowly. This was war now. Quiet, polite, but real. That evening, Dad sent me an email. Subject, don't do this. The body was short. You're tearing this family apart. If something happens to Samir because you refuse to help, I hope you can live with that. I read it twice, then archived it. Not out of cruelty, out of clarity. That night, I slept deeply for the first time in days. Because somewhere between fear and fury, I'd crossed a line they couldn't drag me back over. And they knew it. The apology came 3 days later. Not immediately. Not urgently. Carefully timed, like most things in my family. It arrived as a voicemail from Dad while I was standing in line at the grocery store, holding a basket with eggs, bread, and one unnecessary bar of dark chocolate. Ordinary things. The kind of things you buy when you're pretending life is normal. I didn't listen to it right away. I paid, walked to my car, sat behind the wheel, and waited until my hand stopped shaking before pressing play. His voice sounded older. Slower. Beta, he said, and for the first time in days he didn't sound angry. We need to talk. Things went too far. I stared straight ahead as traffic passed. I may have pushed, he continued, but you have to understand I was under pressure. Samir is not handling things well. Not I was wrong. Not I crossed a line. Just pressure. Just circumstances. We're still family, he added. Let's not turn this into something permanent. I deleted the voicemail. Not because it didn't affect me. It did, but because it wasn't an apology. It was a request to reset without repair. That evening, Samir texted, Can we talk? No fighting. Just talk. I stared at the screen for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Another part, the part trained since childhood to smooth things over, wanted to agree. Against my better judgment, I replied, Fine. Tomorrow. Public place. We met at a small cafe near my office. Neutral ground, glass walls, witnesses. I chose the table closest to the window. Samir arrived 10 minutes late, looking tired in a way that felt performative. He sat down heavily, ran a hand through his hair. "You didn't have to freeze everything," he said immediately. I sipped my coffee. "I did." He frowned. "You embarrassed Dad. You made it look like we were criminals." "You tried to steal from me," I replied. "That is criminal." He flinched, like the word had slapped him. "I wouldn't have kept it," he said. "It was just until things settled." "You don't get to decide that," I said quietly. He leaned forward. "You know Dad agreed. So why am I the villain here?" There it was. The shield. "I'm not choosing villains," I said. "I'm choosing boundaries." Samir scoffed. "You've changed." "Yes," I agreed. "I had to." For a moment, something real flickered across his face, fear, maybe, or the realization that his usual leverage no longer worked. "Dad's not well," he said suddenly. "This stress, it's affecting him." I met his eyes. "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Use his health as a weapon," I said. "It's not fair." He looked away. "I didn't ask to be the responsible one," I continued, "but you benefited from it for years." The waiter came with the bill. I paid only for my coffee. As I stood to leave, Samir said softly, "So that's it?" "For now," I replied. That night, Mom came. I saw her on the building's security camera, standing outside the gate, handbag clutched to her chest like a prop. She buzzed once, then again. I didn't answer. She called my phone instead. I let it ring. For 20 minutes she stayed there, waiting, performing patience. When she finally left, something in my chest loosened. Not happiness, relief. 2 days later, Dad sent another message. "I've arranged something. Let's meet." Against every instinct, I agreed. We met at his office, a place that always smelled like old paper and authority. He sat behind his desk, hands folded. "I spoke to the bank," he said. "Samir will take a smaller loan. We won't touch your savings." I waited. "And," he added, "we'll pay you back for the trouble." As a gesture. A gesture. I stood up. "This was never about compensation," I said. "It was about consent." He looked tired. "You're making this bigger than it needs to be." "No," I replied. "You made it smaller than it was." As I walked out, I realized something unsettling. They were trying to patch the damage without acknowledging the fracture. And fractures don't heal that way. That weekend, the calls slowed. The pressure softened. Almost peace. But it felt unstable. Temporary. Like quiet water over a fault line. I knew, deep down, that this wasn't over. Because people who feel entitled don't stop trying. They just wait for a softer moment. Peace is loud when you don't trust it. For a few days, my phone stayed quiet. No late-night calls. No guilt-laced messages. No relatives suddenly remembering my existence. The silence should have felt healing. Instead, it felt rehearsed. I kept waiting for the catch. It came on a Tuesday morning, disguised as routine. I was halfway through my commute when my card declined at a fuel station. I tried again. Declined. The attendant gave me a polite, apologetic smile. Like this was a small inconvenience, instead of the start of something familiar. I pulled out of line, heart already racing, and opened my banking app. 3 pending transactions. Large ones. All marked as under verification. The merchant name made my stomach twist. A property consultancy firm. My hands went cold. This account was new. Opened after everything happened. New email. New passwords. New boundaries. I had told exactly 2 people about it. Me and Dad. I didn't call this time. I drove. My parents' house looked the same as always. Calm. Respectable. Untouched by the chaos it caused. Dad's car was in the driveway. So was Samir's. I didn't knock. Mom opened the door, surprise flickering across her face before she could rearrange it into something softer. "Oh, you're early," she said. I walked past her. Dad was in the living room, papers spread across the table. Samir stood near the window, phone in hand. They all looked up. "Did you use my new account details?" I asked. No greeting. No preamble. Dad hesitated just long enough. "I assumed you'd moved everything over," he said. Samir said. I laughed. It startled all of us. "You assumed," I repeated. Again. Samir stepped forward. "Relax. It's just documentation. Nothing final." "You tried to use my account," I said, my voice steady in a way that scared even me. Again. Dad frowned. "Don't twist this. We're trying to secure something stable for the family." "For him," I corrected. Samir exploded. "Why are you acting like a victim? You're not even losing anything." That sentence, it echoed. I pulled out my phone and called the bank, right there in front of them. Put it on speaker. Froze the account. Reported the activity. Requested an investigation. Mom's face went pale. "You didn't have to do that," she whispered. "Yes," I said. "I did." Dad stood up, anger flashing. "You're humiliating us." "No," I replied. "I'm protecting myself." Samir scoffed. "You'll regret this." I looked at him, really looked, and felt something close to grief. "I already regret not doing it sooner," I said. I walked out before they could respond. That night, the messages came fast and furious. "Dad, you've crossed a line you can't uncross." "Mom, please stop. You're hurting everyone." "Samir, you think this makes you strong? It just makes you alone." I didn't reply. Instead, I did something I'd avoided for years. I documented everything. Dates, amounts, messages, attempts, screenshots, emails, voicemails. Not for revenge. For truth. 2 days later, my lawyer confirmed what I already knew. "What they attempted," she said carefully, "could qualify as fraud." The words sat between us, heavy and real. I walked out of her office with a strange calm in my chest. That evening, Dad called again. I almost ignored it. Almost. "If you continue this," he said without greeting, "you'll destroy this family." I closed my eyes. "You destroyed it," I replied, "when you decided my consent didn't matter." "You're my daughter," he snapped. "You owe me respect." "I owed you trust," I said, "and you broke it." There was a long pause. Then, quietly, he said something that ended everything. "I'd do it again. For Samir." The line went dead. I stood there in my kitchen. Phone pressed to my ear long after the call ended. That was it. No confusion. No doubt. No hope left to negotiate. He had chosen. And so had I. The quiet after a decision is different from ordinary silence. It doesn't ask questions. It doesn't demand reassurance. It simply exists. That's how the next few days felt. Empty but not hollow. Like a room after furniture has been moved out, waiting to be rearranged with intention instead of obligation. I didn't hear from my family immediately after that call. No apologies. No threats. Just absence. For the first time, they were the ones unsure what to say. I went to work. I cooked for myself. I slept through the night without checking my phone. My body was still tense, but my mind felt clearer than it had in years. 3 days later, Dad emailed. Subject, let's talk like adults. I didn't open it. Not out of anger. Out of completion. Instead, I forwarded everything to my lawyer. The messages, the attempted transfers, the recorded call where he admitted he'd do it again. She responded within the hour. "You have enough to protect yourself fully," she wrote, "and to proceed if you choose." If you choose. That phrase mattered, because for once the choice was mine. That evening, Samir showed up at my building. I saw him on the security camera, standing where Mom once had, hands in pockets, posture uncertain. He looked smaller than I remembered, less entitled, more exposed. I went down. He looked surprised when I opened the gate. "I didn't think you'd come." "I didn't think you'd apologize," I replied. He swallowed. "I'm not here to ask for anything." That alone told me how bad things had gotten. Dad had cut him off, not because he understood, but because I was no longer available to fund the imbalance. I didn't think he'd actually go that far, Samir said quietly. I thought he'd talk you into it, eventually. Like always. I nodded. He usually does. Samir looked down. I used that. The honesty caught me off guard. I know, I said. He exhaled, rubbing his face. He told me today that if I fail again, it's on me. No more help. No safety net. I waited. I'm not asking you to fix this, he added quickly. I know you won't. I just wanted you to know I see it now. I studied him, really studied him, and realized something bittersweet. Seeing isn't the same as changing. I hope you do better, I said, but I'm not part of this anymore. He nodded. I figured. When he left, I didn't feel victorious. I felt free. 2 weeks later, Dad sent another email. This one was shorter. Your mother is very upset. You've made your point. We've closed the matter. Closed. As if it were a file. As if people were transactions. I replied with one sentence. Do not contact me about finances or family matters again. Then I blocked his number. I didn't announce it. I didn't explain it to relatives. I didn't justify it. I simply stopped participating. Christmas came quietly that year. No decorations at my parents' house for me to admire. No forced smiles. No carefully choreographed forgiveness. Instead, I spent it with friends who didn't ask me to prove my worth with sacrifice. We cooked too much food, laughed too loudly, and slept without dread. On New Year's Eve, I sat alone on my balcony, city lights blinking below, and realized something profound. I wasn't lonely. I was unburdened. In January, my lawyer confirmed the investigation had concluded. The accounts were secure. Legal safeguards in place. No more access. No more assumptions. Control, real control, restored. One afternoon, as I was reorganizing my apartment, I found an old notebook from years ago. Inside, a list I'd written in my early 20s. Goals. Buy a home. Support family. Be dependable. I smiled softly and crossed out the middle one. Not because I'd stopped caring, but because care without consent is exploitation. I added a new line beneath it. Protect my peace. Months passed. The world didn't end. The family didn't collapse. And I didn't become the villain they warned me I would be. What changed was simpler and stronger. They learned they couldn't take from me anymore. And I learned I didn't need permission to stop giving. Sometimes healing isn't reconciliation. Sometimes it's distance with dignity. When people ask now why I don't visit home as often, I say things changed. Because they did. My brother tried to steal from me. My father agreed. And that betrayal taught me the most important lesson of my life. Family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by respect. And I will never again confuse the two.